It's also true right now, Mr. President, that voters by a wide margin trust Trump more on the economy. They say that in polls.
The polling data has been wrong all along.
Ain't nothing changed, nothing new here to see. This ain't nothing but some political maneuvering.
America.
Welcome to the eulogy, eat it up. It's called political buffoonery.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to This Week in DUMBmocracy, where we showcase some of the dumbest newsmakers of the week. The economy, stupid. Now, that's a phrase that was coined back in 1992 by a Democratic strategist named James Carville, who at the time was working for a young Democrat upstart looking to unseat an incumbent Republican president. Of course, I'm referring to Bill Clinton's victory over President George Herbert Walker Bush. Now, it was phrases like the economy, stupid, and change versus more of the same that Carville used when talking about the message of the campaign, which, by the way, back then, there was a recession that the country was going through, so it was a very resonant message for kitchen table issues that Americans were facing every day. Fast forward to this election cycle, and the message remains the same. The economy, stupid, at least for those of us feeling the crunch of inflation and growing prices, shrinkflation, and everything we're dealing with on a daily basis. There are so many Americans that are living paycheck to paycheck these days that the economy has to be the number one issue out there. Sure, people will tell you it's abortion or it's what's going on internationally, but when you look at things domestically at home, it's the economy, stupid. And that's the message that President Joe Biden had to take away from his interview with Erin Burnett on CNN this week. Biden got a reality check about the economy, and it looked like he was being confronted with inconvenient facts that he'd never heard or seen before. We're going to go through that portion of Erin Burnett's interview discussing the economy, but before we do, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other shows, and if you like what you're seeing here in this or any other video on this channel, smash that thumbs up button, like, comment, share the show with your friends, all that good stuff, because all that helps grow the channel by feeding the YouTube algorithm.
It just needs to be fed. So feed it.
Thank you guys so much for all that you do to help grow the channel. You deserve a reward, by the way, and what you should do is head on over to our store tab and check out the merch there. I'm wearing one of my shirts that I created. It's a real conversation starter that shows that I am sick and tired of voting for buffoons, and therefore, I'm not going to vote for any party label. You can find this shirt in many different colors, as well as other messages at shop.buffoonoftheweek.com or under the store tab on this channel. That all being said, and the grift being done, let's get into this interview by CNN's Erin Burnett with President Joe Biden talking about election issues, and in particular, the economy. Before we roll the clip, let's focus on what we should be looking for in this video. I want to look at real substance here. I don't really care about Joe Biden's doddering nature, his feeble mind, feeble body. That has been well documented. We know all that. We've come to expect that. Let's focus on those two phrases from James Carville, the economy, stupid, and change versus more of the same. I want you to listen to the substance of the answers from Joe Biden here, and then we're going to confront the burning question. Based upon this interview, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And would you vote for this man based upon the substance, not necessarily the presentation, but the substance of what he's saying?
When you talk about the economy, of course, it is by far the most important issue for voters. It's also true right now, Mr. President, that voters by a wide margin trust Trump more on the economy. They say that in polls.
A poll this week shows Americans trust Mr. Trump over the president on the economy and inflation by double digits, while 2/3 of Americans say they're living paycheck to paycheck.
And part of the reason for that may be the numbers, and you're aware of many of these, of course. The cost of buying a home in the United States is double what it was when you look at your monthly costs from before the pandemic. Real income, when you account for inflation, is actually down since you took office. Economic growth last week, far short of expectations.
That's a cold, hard fact.
Now let's focus in on Joe Biden's expression here. Does this look like someone who knows about these numbers and has been confronted with them before? Or does he seem a little bit surprised that he's sitting down at CNN and being confronted with these facts that are contrary to his campaign's narrative? I'll leave you to judge that.
Consumer confidence, maybe no surprise, is near a 2-year low. With less than 6 months to go to Election Day, are you worried that you're running out of time to turn that around?
We've already turned it around. Look at the Michigan survey. For 65% of the American people think they're in good shape economically. They think the nation's not in good shape, but they're personally in good shape.
Denial. It's not just River in Egypt no more, is it, Harry?
Well, that answer doesn't inspire any confidence. First, he denies reality, in my opinion, by saying we've already turned around the economy, and then starts referring to a poll in the state of Michigan, where the people in Michigan, the Michiganders, just a phrase I learned recently, people in Michigan are saying that while we're doing okay, we're peachy keen, the nation sucks right now. Is this really something that a candidate that wants to be reelected should be highlighting? I don't think so.
The polling data has been wrong all along. How many, you guys do a poll at CNN, how many folks you have to call to get one response? The idea that we're in a situation where things are so bad, the folks that, we've created more jobs. We're in a situation where people have access to good paying jobs.
Okay, I just want to go back a little bit here. Did Joe Biden attack polling? That sounds like a Trumpian tactic to me. The polls are all wrong. After he just highlighted a poll in Michigan. I don't get that at all. But then there's also this line about job creation. Now, for those of us actually pay attention in reality, job creation has to be mitigated a little bit because Joe Biden's job creation was more about job recuperation, jobs that were lost during the pandemic that were then restored. It was about job restoration, not job creation. This is a line that he uses all the time, talking about Donald Trump losing jobs during his presidency and him creating so many jobs in his presidency. It's a false dichotomy.
And the last I saw, the combination of the inflation, the cost of inflation, all those things, that's really worrisome to people with good reason. That's why I'm working very hard to bring the cost of rentals down, to increase the number of homes that are available. But let me say it this way. When I started this administration, people were saying there's going to be a collapse of the economy. We have the strongest economy in the world.
A bold claim.
Do you feel like the economy is doing well with rising prices, increased cost of living, lower wages? You know what? Let's make that the topic of the day. How do you feel about the American economy? Leave me a comment. Let me know if you agree with what Joe Biden is saying here, or if you disagree, how you disagree.
Let me say it again, in the world.
Although GDP last week was far short of expectations.
Oh, it wasn't. Look, GDP is still growing. Look at the response of the markets. Overwhelmingly positive. Overwhelmingly positive.
Did he just say that GDP was not below expectations?
Flashback.
GDP comes in as a surprise. This one is one for the Bears, guys. 1.6%. That is about half of the 3.4% that we saw in the fourth quarter. And it is also significantly lower than the 2.5% that was anticipated. We need to, at this point, look at what the issue was with that.
End of flashback.
Joe Biden is not confronting reality that Erin Burnett is placing before him. We all feel it every day. Maybe this is a symptom of being a politician in such an insulated administration that he doesn't understand, or he's out of touch with Main Street kitchen table issues, like how to make ends meet under his leadership. It just hasn't been working for many Americans. 65% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck under the Biden administration. Does that sound like a good economy, the best economy in the world? I don't think so.
And one of the reasons why people feel good about it not being as strong as it was before is they believe that the Fed's going to respond.
They hope they're going to get a rate cut.
Yeah. Well, no president's had the run we've had in terms of creating jobs and bringing down inflation. It was 9% when I came to office.
That's also inaccurate. Inflation, when President Trump left office, I believe, was somewhere around 1.5% to 2%. Guys, fact check me if I'm wrong about that. I don't think that inflation was at 9% at the time that the Biden administration took over from the Trump administration. But you know what? Fact check me on it.
9%. But look, people have a right to be concerned. Ordinary people, the idea that you bounce a check and you get a $30 fee for bouncing the check, might change that. You can't charge more than $8 for that. Or your credit card, your late payment, $35. I mean, there's corporate greed going on out there, and it's got to be dealt with.
I think you're passing the buck.
Oh, and there it is. The point emerges. It's not the Biden administration's fault that prices are rising. It's those greedy corporations. He's passing the buck from his administration to the private sector. That doesn't sound like leadership to me, the passing of the buck like that. And the touting of his bona fides with regards to the economy. Check bouncing fees and credit card fees? Really? That's the main ticket items that you want to bring about here? It's like he's talking out of two sides of his mouth. At first he's saying the economy is recovered and we're doing okay. We have the best economy in the world, duh. But then at the same time, I know that you're feeling the pinch from inflation, but that's not my fault. That's everybody else's fault. And look what I did. I put $3 back in your pocket. This is completely out of touch with reality. Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show.
What about, but there's real pain. Grocery prices are up 30%, more than 30%. Since the beginning of the pandemic, and people are spending more on food and groceries than they have at any time really in the past 30 years. That's a real day-to-day pain that people...
No.
Credit to Erin Burnett here, pushing back with facts about what is going on the ground in the average American household. President Biden, again, doesn't seem to want to grasp that reality, the everyday reality that we're going through every single day. We haven't even mentioned price at the pump. We just mentioned now grocery shopping, all the other expenses in life, and quality of life as a result of all these extra added expenses going down. A negative feeling about how we're headed in a direction as a nation. President Biden is seemingly in denial about all this.
It really is, and it's real.
But
the fact is that if you take a look at what the people have, they have the money to spend. It angers them and angers me that you have to spend more.
How does that help?
Oh, so look at that. He recognized the reality of inflation. He's not taking responsibility for it. He just says that, but the economy is so good that you guys can afford to pay the pain. Is that what you want to hear from a leader? You want to pay for the pain, really? I know I sure don't. I'm not hearing President Biden accepting responsibility for anything. It feels like he's out of touch with the economic concerns of everyday average Americans.
For example, the whole idea of this notion that Senator Casey talked about, shrinkflation. I think it's on your
Same
program.
price for a smaller bottle of juice or something.
For example, Snickers bar, they did a thing, and it's like 20% less for the same price. That's corporate greed. It's corporate greed. And we've got to deal with it, and that's what I'm working on.
He's sticking to that line about corporate greed. Listen, Joe Biden is exhibiting a lot of the traits of buffoons that I talk about in my book, Schnooks, Crooks, Lies, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores. There's many traits that we can go into, how it looks like he's in over his head and discussing the real concerns of Americans at the kitchen table. We can talk about him being a BS buffoon in that. We can talk about him being completely tone deaf and having a shocking lack of self-awareness about what's going on. But honestly, I think this is a sign of almost like general political narcissism. Everything's fine. I'm doing great. The economy's booming. Sure, you have to pay a little more, but hey, you got it like that now. You can pay for all that.
Hand over your wallets.
It seems like small comfort for those of us who are paying out of pocket, who are paying for the pain of living under this administration. Is there any sympathy for that? Sure, he has some token I feel your pain stuff going on here, making another reference to Bill Clinton back in the 90s. But it doesn't seem like Biden really knew about what's going on because he's so insulated. Now, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you when we started watching these clips. Do you feel better now about where you are compared to 4 years ago? Is it all about the economy, stupid? And if it is, how do you feel about the economy? If you're anything like me, I think you'd be saying, no, hell no, I'm not better off than I was 4 years ago. And I think it's time for change rather than more of the same. But hey, look, that's just my opinion. Let's get in the comments and let's discuss this. And as always, like and share this show with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other shows. How do you feel about the economy? Let's talk about it together, discussing this video and any other shenanigans and buffoonery happening every day this week in DUMBmocracy.
All views and opinions expressed here are not necessarily of the mainstream media and may offend some listeners. It's called political buffoonery.